Hi, good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending our webinar this morning. We're going to kick off in a couple of minutes, just let a few other people join in. People are starting to join in at the moment, but we're just waiting to get the numbers up slightly. So if you can just bear with us a couple of minutes and yeah, we'll get started. Thank you. Hi, so good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on our webinar. It's great to see so many of you following on from the panel discussion at the Digit Expo event in Edinburgh last week. We've still got a few more people joining, but we'll get started right now. The conversation last week really highlighted the challenges and opportunities business face with adopting AI, and today we want to dive a little deeper into practical solutions. During our panel, we explored the mindset shift of adopting AI, tools to build an automation for strategy, importance of governance, data security, and implementing a strong AI policy, and the future of agentic AI. The key insight was clear. ROI doesn't come from tools alone, but from thoughtful processes redesigned where automation, AI, and humans each play their part. If you missed out on this, we will share a full recording from the session and the panel discussion after this session for you all to go through, but it's also available on our Workflow YouTube channel. So moving on, we have a couple of partners with us today. First of all, I'd like to introduce Matthew Higgins. Matthew is from PAX-A and he's the Microsoft AI Business Solutions Ambassador. His expertise spans the entire Microsoft 365 suite, employee adoption strategies, and an AI-driven transformation. And along with Matthew, we also have Martin Barrett from UiPath UK, Senior Solutions Engineer Manager. Martin co-founded an automation-driven venture focused on biometrics and compliance, so he truly understands automation from both a technical and entrepreneurial prospects. Today, our topic is making AI work for your team, and that's exactly what we're going to focus on, not just the technology, but practical framework and implementation. We'll walk through real strategies from identifying the right process, building a phased roadmap, ensuring governance, and most importantly, making AI work for your actual workflows. Before we dive in though, just a quick note, if you do have any questions, please just put them in the chat box section at the end and we'll pick up on these in the question and answer session. So let's hand it over to our partners. Matthew, Martin, welcome.
Good morning and thanks for joining everybody. Welcome back if you attended the panel in Edinburgh. Good to see you again. So I'd first like to address kind of the gap of why adoption stalls when people are looking to roll it out. And what we're seeing in the marketplace at the minute is, unfortunately, many SMEs that are buying Copilot licenses, Microsoft AI licenses, but then they never actually embed them into their daily life and processes. And part of the reason why the kind of AI adoption fails that we're seeing is that people tend to keep the data siloed, and more importantly, they tend to keep their successes siloed, not just kind of within their team, but within their department. So there's no widespread sharing of, oh, this is how we're using AI, this is how we've used it to help us today. And without that sharing of knowledge and success, the part of the challenge is that it can make AI feel quite overwhelming because each department has different priorities. So finance are wanting better accuracy or possibly some sort of invoice automation. HR are looking to lower the number of requests they've got and improve employee experience, and IT are looking to reduce the amount of time spent on quite low level tickets. And actually, the best thing that people can do to drive that adoption and really get everybody embracing AI is sharing that success and helping their employees understand that AI isn't here to replace them or their jobs. AI is a business tool just like any other, like you would use Word or PowerPoint, and it's here to help them with their daily work and to help them be more productive on a day-to-day basis. And how businesses can look to do that is, rather than looking at an individual process that they want to automate, but look at the entire workflow as a whole, because that's how you're going to unlock the ROI from AI automation. Because if you focus on one small task, there may be some small piece of ROI from automating that task, but you're missing out on a huge chunk of the wider workflow, which doesn't really deliver the value that you're expecting, and means that people don't really understand the value that people are getting from AI, hindering adoption. So to move on to the next topic, and how do you then identify processes ready for automation? I'd like to hand over to Martin.
Lovely. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Jonathan, for the introduction. So identifying processes ready for automation, the perfect topic for a solution engineer. The why are we doing this? Back to the ROI conversation, and then the how. So how are we going to accomplish it? Interestingly, I read a quote recently saying that 90% of IT execs say that the processes would be improved by agentic AI, but only 37% have adopted it. And I can't help but think, is this down to the identification of the right processes? So there's the way I look at it, the way we've kind of approached it at UiPath is there's probably two ways to identify processes that are ready. The first one is looking within the existing processes that already have been partially automated. So if you look at a process with existing technologies that were available, then you would have partially automated, using kind of the likes of RPA automation. But there's still gaps in those, and those gaps lead to where the largest part of the ROI could fall. The second part is identifying new processes where AI could be leveraged as well. So if we think of the existing ones, you've got a process that you've looked to automate, but there could be parts within that, there's gaps within that. And that's where a lot of conversations, practical conversations we're having right now is, okay, you've ingested, let's take AP as a process. You've ingested data, you've brought it in, you've taken document processing to understand that. But then when there's any discrepancies, they then need to go to a person, subject matter expert, to then look at those, understand those, and then investigate and provide a resolution. And that's where this evolution, so AI is just building on top of existing technologies. So now, to that point, it is just another tool, but it's another tool that has a bit more cognitive capabilities to help automate further and plug in those gaps of existing processes. So you can leverage these tools now to start to complete those processes with automation. If we're looking at new processes, so that's the second part. So how do I identify a new process? You'll always know best. There's tools to help with discovering new processes for automation. But the typical process that we first look at would be procure to pay, record to report, quote to order to cash, hire to retire. And you can ask 3 simple questions if you're identifying a new process, which is it repetitive, is it measurable, and is there value behind it? And the indicators for new processes, or the right process to automate, would be, just looking for high flow of high volumes of documents, communications. So just where that volume sits, and if it requires a lot of people to support the growth and the scale of it as well. So they can just be indicators that sit behind those questions for identifying processes. Okay. So moving on to building out a roadmap for these. So there's multiple frameworks that you can use to support a roadmap. There's different approaches. I suppose for me, it always comes down to, okay, what's the maturity that your organization is in? Have you used automation before? Have you got an AI council or team? So all these factors play out as to the roadmap. Typically, you can use methodologies such as crawl, walk, and run, or scale, transform, and extend. But either way, they follow these phases that are on the screen. So starting off, pilot with a single process. This is always the best case now to start off a roadmap if you haven't gone down the automation route before. So when we talk about this, it's starting small. So looking at a use case that can be quickly delivered, and that shows high impact on the business, i.e. high returns for that department. So typically done in a short time span, you can get in, prove the technology, prove the value, with a use case such as one that we talked about previously, which is high volume workflow, for instance. After that phase, we can start to expand from use case into process. So start to look at that end-to-end process. So expand AI into that. Looking at, okay, where can we string together and orchestrate these individual activities within the process? So it's just scaling horizontally for that. So if we look through IT departments, finance, again, being a supply chain, to start to build out that end-to-end process with adjacent tasks into it. If we look at moving on to that kind of third phase, so this is where you've proven a use case, you've expanded and grown that value. Now there's the appetite or building appetite for the business to think about the long-term roadmap, so extending and transforming. And this is where you start to create your center of excellence teams. You start to feel upskilling teams within the organization so that they can take on that, start to build a backlog of ideas, quantify those ideas with the metrics behind those, in order to start to show a program of work that more importantly is aligned to the business goals or the vision, if they've got, say, a 2 or 5 year plan. And then that falls on to, okay, you set the team internally to support this. So identified processes, you've proven the value, you've now got the foundation with your partner network as well, in order to build internal capability. Now you can think about scaling it forward. So this is where we go into scaling innovation. So looking at the art of the possible here. So this way you could start to move agentic orchestration. So utilizing the right tools, systems, applications within the business, across departments as well, and leverage those and bring those all together and start to think about the future vision. The Matthew to pick up governance part.
No, that's fine. I wasn't sure whether or not you wanted to go first. It's all good. Yeah, a really key part of rolling out AI is having that governance in place and set up in advance. Ultimately, your employees are going to feel much more confident in using the AI tool sets that you give them when they know what they're allowed to do, but more importantly, what they're not allowed to do and which tools they're not allowed to use. So the number one thing you can do before rolling out any AI tool set is make sure you've got your own internal AI policy in place, in the same way that you've got an expenses policy or a travel policy or a IT policy. Make sure you've got one for AI so people know where they sit and they can be confident with playing around and unlocking some of that benefit and ROI. Currently, 1 in 3 people are bringing their own AI to work every single week. So people are already using AI inside your own business, whether authorized or unauthorized. So the best thing you can do is take back control of that today, ideally by using the Microsoft ecosystem, because they've guaranteed that with any of their products, whether that be the free Microsoft Chat through to the paid for Copilot SKUs, all of your business data will be protected with enterprise grade protection. So you can be secure in the knowledge that you can allow your employees to go explore, play around, adopt, and unlock the benefits that they can achieve from AI. I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add, Martin.
Yeah, I suppose just from a UiPath perspective, inside the platform, of course, we've got regulations coming in now that cover that, with consequential fines for organisations for those government practices. So for us, where you can control that in your environment, is looking at automation ops, so this way you can specifically set governance and control and policies. And then with the recent move to agentic is, okay, we've now got the AI trust layer, to Matthew points there. So within this is where you can control and enforce your adoption of AI within the UiPath platform, so that even though you can push that out to admins and business users, you've still got that central place of governance to control what it is that's being used and where it's being used. More importantly, that audit capability within that. So within that, no data is trained, used to be trained on or retained within the trust layer for ourselves.
And of course, that kind of first step towards government sometimes can seem like quite an onerous task for businesses, which is where I'd absolutely recommend working with a partner like Workflow or UiPath to help you on that journey, because they'll be able to step in and support you with the initial steps of getting all of your sensitivity labeling set up in the background, so that you're really ready to kind of go hammer and tongs with AI when you start to dive into it a bit further. What does it look like when you're further down this journey then? So I'd like to share a real world example that I came across recently, which was a small family law firm. So there's kind of sub 10 person organization handling a lot of kind of divorce proceedings and things like that. And they were really struggling with the volume of work they were able to take on, because whenever a divorce was happening, they'd get handed a bundle of financial documents and bank statements and all that sort of stuff. And it was a poor, like, intern paralegal level role to sit and sift through all that data and try and pick out any anomalies, how much party A was spending on X, how much party B was spending on Y, to kind of go through the divorce proceedings. But by creating an agent, what they were able to do is dump all of that documentation that they receive into the agent, and it would automatically analyze, and the paralegal could interact with the agent using natural language to very quickly and easily analyze the financial documentation without having to go through it line by line with a highlighter. And the outcome for this law firm was transformational, because the paralegals were spending significantly less time per case doing the kind of the grunt work and the analysis, and the outcome of that for them was that they were able to add 30% to their top line revenue, because they were able to take on more cases using the same amount of personnel. So that kind of gives an insight into what sort of a difference it can make.
So it's from our side, probably leading on exactly from that. I mean, it always goes back to what's the outcome for the organisation or company working with. What's been interesting, I was actually speaking to you because you mentioned it there. There's been historically kind of a focus on cost savings and reduction with automation. And what we're seeing now with agents being introduced is that that's kind of now shifted towards how can we actually do revenue enablement. So change from production into let's generate revenue. So on the reduction, there's on the other end of scale, there's a manufacturer that I work with, medical devices. They had about 200,000 transactions a month that touch the AP process. So within that, introduced automation to help process invoices and documentation, which led to about £6 million worth in savings for this organisation. And that was down to two elements. There's a reduction of third-party costs that were involved in this process historically. So that made that part redundant because it could be self-reliant and efficient. And then it came down to, we do talk about value, but the accuracy of the technology underpinning it has to be there. So it led to about 90% accuracy in document processing with that human's oversight and key important oversight always in the loop there. So high volume at scale globally with high rewards there. So that was on the reduction and savings. So where I'm seeing a lot of conversation of what actually looks like in the last, let's just say in the last 12 months now, is this focus and shift onto agents supporting that automation process. Can be UiPath agents, can be Microsoft agents, can be Salesforce. UiPath have always been agnostic and work with technologies. But where we're seeing is these flows, or the two current ones I'm working on is looking at sales quotes. So having the assistance of agents now to work on quotes or orders or quotes that come in, using agents to help populate that, and that comes down to speed to lead on that part. So getting a quote out faster, getting that quote optimized based on demand and margin as well. So growing the margin, getting it out faster, and increasing the win rate for organizations. And then even fulfilling that process is that quote's accepted, then listening to that, having email triaging in place so that if it was accepted, then populate that and push that into Salesforce for processing. So fascinating, really good examples that we're starting to see and processes start to work on that shift because of AI and agents come into the picture now.
Thank you, both Martin and Matthew. Quite interesting examples there. So what I wanted to do was just talk very quickly, take a moment just to discuss how AIPath, Paxate and Workflow work together. The partnership's exactly what we need to make AI implementation successful for our clients. UiPath provide a powerful automation engine handling those multi-step rule-based processes across the applications that we discussed earlier on, whether it's invoice and processing, IT ticketing routing, data validation, UiPath excels in these structures. Paxate is a trusted partner for Microsoft solutions, making it seamless for us to deliver Microsoft 365 Copilot and broader Microsoft AI ecosystems to all our clients. We at Workflow, we are the managed service provider, so we tie the ecosystem together between ourselves and the partners. We help you identify which processes need automation, where Copilot can add intelligence, and how to connect everything into a cohesive workflows, easy for you to say, which actually works for your business. We provide governance frameworks and centralized dashboards that audit trails everything you need to deploy AI security in a scale confidently. About Workflow, we are the managed service provider, and we work thoroughly with the partners, Paxate, UiPath, to deliver these AI solutions. We're the workflow architects, so to speak, so we understand your business needs. We work with companies to redesign these processes, implement the right combinations and automations in AI to ensure that everything is governed properly from day one. Our approach is practical, phased and people-centric, because we believe AI should have augmented decision making, not replacing people. Universal applications, it doesn't matter if you are a company of 5 people or 50,000 people. AI works regardless of your size. If you feel you're too small a company, these organizations have small teams that are doing repetitive tasks all the time. So bringing AI can save these hours and having a viable impact on your day-to-day processing. Companies a lot larger have multi-departments, complex tasks. So bringing AI into these tasks, into these departments, are going to help along the way, reducing time on, again, these repetitive tasks. So it doesn't matter if the company is 5 individuals, 50,000 individuals. Bringing AI is going to help improve within the industry. Workflow's here to help you navigate AI in your everyday workflows. Together with our partners with UiPath and Pax8, we'll provide the technology, the expertise and ongoing support to make AI work for your specific needs. We start small, prove very quickly and continue to support moving forward. I believe we've got some questions and answers or a question session, which both Matthew and Martin will answer for us. Over to you guys.
I don't mind picking up the first one, Martin. So the first one that's come in is, for businesses aiming to scale quickly, what safeguards or best practices should be in place when deploying AI? So we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. I would say step number one every single time is make sure that you've got your AI policy in place so that your employees can be confident that what they're doing is kind of within scope and within what they're allowed to do to be able to innovate and really drive that growth quickly. I would also suggest making sure that you partner with someone like Workflow to go through things like your SharePoint, make sure all your data sensitivity labeling is set up, use programs possibly like Microsoft Purview to kind of automate as labeling when a new document is created, or to highlight when someone has changed position, department and role, to make sure that, for example, if someone moves from finance to HR, they don't retain access to the finance documentation that they don't necessarily need. Because if you're aiming to scale quickly, it's likely your head count will be growing quickly as well, and you need a way to manage that changing landscape. But with those good foundations set up, it will really set a strong foundation to ensure that you can scale quickly and safely whilst taking all the advantages of AI. I don't know if you've got any comments to add, Martin or Jonathan.
No, I'm good. Martin?
I think that answered it perfectly. Yeah.
Oh, look at that. I can come again. So moving on to the next question then of how do you ensure transparency and trust in AI-driven processes? Obviously, you're very heavily involved with building out AI-driven processes with clients, Martin. Kind of what would you do in your process to ensure that transparency and trust as you're going through?
It's a good point. It's something that's imperative to all engagements. There's, I think we cut off that if the partner is involved, it's key because they know the customer, the process, and be supporting from a platform perspective. Transparency and trust is the engagement of the teams, the engagement of if there's InfoSec involved there as well. Get them engaged early, understand are there certain LLMs, for instance, that they only work with, what are their policies, and then ensuring that the policies that they work to are adhered within the platform and the structure of the governance of the platform, i.e. setting out the policies within the trust layer, automation ops there. So there's a early engagement with the security teams of the customer, and then alignment of that within the technology that's being rolled out. And then to a point that you made earlier is just the access, so the right person has right access and control within the platform to execute. So you've got that separation there as well.
So from my perspective, I would probably highlight two things. The first, from a product and solution perspective, is that transparency and trust is built into all of the Microsoft AI products by design. Microsoft have a really clear, responsible AI framework, which transparency is a part of it, where they really clearly say at all times you will be able to see what data we're using of yours, for what and for why, along with how they're going to use your data. Point one being that they will not use your business data to train any of the large language models, so it doesn't leave the service boundary of your tenant. And then point two, moving on from that in terms of the transparency and trust in the process side of it, developing an AI process is a little bit different from any other business solution that you'll procure for your business. Historically, it's been the case that you would have a problem, go out to market, find a solution that fixes that problem, implement it. Whereas with AI, because it's so customizable, what you may find is that during the build process, as you start to fix and implement it, the solution that you've implemented isn't quite how you want it, which can lead to a bit of distrust. But actually, that's all part of the development process and working with partners like Workflow and UiPath. And you need to let your employees know it's okay to feed back when something's not working. It's okay to feed back that actually you'd prefer it if it worked a little bit more like this, because it can be iteratively developed to move into something that fits the solution that they're after. And so it's just that mindset shift of it's not a one and done. It's an ongoing conversation to be developed however you need it to be developed, which will help build that trust with the AI tool sets that you give your staff.
Wonderful, great, thank you guys.
If I thinking, there's quite a few that coming in. There's one here for both of us, Matthew. So, what's the right level of human in the loop oversight for critical business workflows? I'll take a stab at it first. It's something that it's always in question, and it came back to the forefront of processes now that we're introducing agents into processes as well. So human in the loop always been there at the dawn of time from an RPA automation perspective. So brought in, if we're looking at documents, you want that over the site to say, has that extraction accurately pulled out the fields that I need it to be, i.e. invoice date or totals and addresses. We're in the same position again, just a few years later, just with the introduction of agents or GenAI activities within the workflows as well. If we look at the underlying principle of why we have human in the loop, it's based on, do I trust what the solution is producing for me? So again, it's always going to be a level of trust. That trust is a, shall we say, satisfied or adhered to when we're going through the training and the development of the solution. So naturally, out the box, depending on if it's document processing or if it's an agent, you'll have a certain level of accuracy coming straight out. Once you start to train and tune it, that level of accuracy goes up, which means that the trust also goes up within the organization. So you're ramping up, you're building the trust, you're telling it and tuning it. So every time you reaffirm an action, it's always going to tune into a model. You've done the right job there. Remember that for next time. So it's going to go into the memory, and it's going to be training the model. Works designed for agents and for specialized models for documents, of structured documents. So you will see that go up. Trust goes up, which means that straight through process comes up, which then means that the value of the solution goes up as well. The return of investment, and how you want to find that, will also increase. So the right level, to answer the question for me, would be understanding, okay, during the development, what's the baseline, where is it out of the box, engaging the SMEs, engaging yourselves and the partner experience as well, not this workflow, to say, here's where we typically start at. You'll have that guidance. You'll have the guidance from vendors as well, in order to support you as a baseline, and then you'll be changing that as you go through into production. But Matthew, would be interested to hear your point, your view on that, and Jonathan as well, actually.
No, I think you've kind of nailed it there, and it actually loops into one of the other questions that have come in, where they ask, circling back to the governance bit, how do you ensure AI-driven decisions remain accurate and compliant as the business grows? The key bit that I always say to remember with AI is that certainly from a Microsoft perspective, it's in the name. It's a co-pilot, not an autopilot. It is the case that it's a bit like having an intern that's really eager to please and to provide you with responses. But if you asked an intern to go and grab you a coffee from Starbucks, they might come back with a black coffee, a white coffee, a cappuccino, God knows what. Whereas if you ask them to go get a pumpkin spice latte from Costa, that's what they're going to go and get for you. So in terms of ensuring AI-driven decisions remain accurate, it's remember that it's a co-pilot, not an autopilot. So just in the same way as if an intern produced a document for you, you would proofread it and check it before sending it. And B, from a knowledge-based perspective, in terms of remaining compliant, you can feed compliance frameworks into the back end of an AI agent for its knowledge base to refer to, so that you can give it an instruction saying, at all times, ensure you remain compliant with this framework, ensure your responses are business appropriate, concise, etc., to make sure that the responses that come back are compliant. The added benefit from a Microsoft perspective to this is that in Copilot's backend, they actually employ a responsible AI framework, which dials down the creativity of the standard, say, ChatGPT engine by about 20% to ensure the responses have fewer hallucinations, so it doesn't just make things up. And the responses that you get back are more business appropriate, so that you don't get some wild responses that you absolutely would not want sending out to a customer, which as a business grows, that will apply when you're just starting your journey or all the way through to kind of an enterprise level, because it's set up in the back end to be delivered like that. Jonathan, I don't know if you had any thoughts on the previous two questions that we've been discussing.
No, I think both of you have kind of covered everything off on the questions. I do have one question that we get asked quite a lot, Matthew, and it goes back to you discussing the small law firm. So we get asked, about what sort of efficiencies can be gained by introducing AI into the workplace. That's something you can maybe dive a wee bit further into with your small law firm you spoke about.
Yeah, I think that ties in with the question, what are the quickest AI wins organizations typically see when automating manual workflows? I think really it varies so wildly, because all businesses have different ways of completing the same thing, but ultimately it comes down to three areas. How can I add revenue or grow my business? How can I reduce my exposure to risk? Or how can I make cost savings, which typically is in the way of reducing the amount of time spent on a particular task? So if you think about it from those perspectives and speak to your employees and establish, okay, here are the OKRs and KPIs that we've got in place for you. What are the blockers that are stopping you smashing those every single month? And then the feedback from them and your employees, I'm sure, as long as you make it clear there'll be no repercussions, are always willing to whinge. It's like the national British pastime is having a whinge. So they'll be more than happy to tell you what their frustrations are, and they will by far and above be the quickest wins. Not only because you'll be removing a blocker with something that's frustrating them, but the most successful AI implementations are the implementations that people actually want, because they will adopt them and engage with them and use them. Whereas if you just start automating processes people aren't bothered about, you won't see any ROI or wins, because people will be like, well, it doesn't matter to me. So the quickest wins are the wins that matter most to your employees, the things that help them get onto their day-to-day. And the best thing you can do to find out what those are is to speak to your employees and ask them.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Well, that's us running out of time. So I just want to say thank you very much, guys, for you being involved today. We have covered a lot of ground, identified a lot of automation opportunities as well. So yeah, thank you very much for being on board. We're going to be sharing the panel today with anybody that wants to receive it. So if you just send a wee email in asking for the actual discussion today, we've had it all recorded so we can get this emailed over to yourself. If you do have any other further questions that you need answered, certainly ping them over, and myself or both Martin and Matthew can get on top of them and send a quick email back. Alternatively as well, we would be more than happy to attend site, sit down, have a discussion, and find out exactly where AI can help you, your team, and your business also. You guys got anything else to add before we clock off?
No, thank you very much.
No, that's excellent. Hopefully it's been useful and insightful for people, and thanks for joining.
Yeah, wonderful. Thanks again, guys, and thank you everybody else. I hope you all have a great day.